I know a lot of you are taking the LSAT in June or July in just a few weeks or a month or so, and so I thought it'd be good to devote some time to this. I think if you're taking it in June, which is just 2 weeks from now, this is not really the time to try anything radically new. If you've been reading the logical reasoning, for example, question stem first, don't suddenly switch to the stimulus, and vice versa. If you suddenly want to do if you were doing previously 4 passages or 4 games, might not be the time to suddenly start trying out only doing 3 to see how that works out for you. I think it's really important to be fairly consistent in the final weeks. If you've got a month or more, then you could play around a little bit more, but final 2 weeks or so, I wouldn't really do a whole lot differently. I think that you want to mainly focus, if you're 2 weeks out, just timed exams and review, maybe brushing up on weak areas here or there. Ultimately, a lot of this is going to be personal. Not everyone's in the same place in the final weeks, and also you have your own unique personality and mentality. Different things work for different people. But I think overall, timed exams are a good way to go, especially if you haven't done enough of them. I think that most people should do at least 10 full-length timed exams before test day. If you have 2 weeks and you haven't done any, don't try to do all 10 in those 2 weeks. That's far too much. I really recommend at most doing, on average, 2 timed exams per week max. If you're working full-time or you're in school, then 1 per week could be enough. Detailed review is really the most important thing to be doing with that material. And the purpose of the exam is not simply to measure your results, it's to build your endurance and also to ID weak areas. Your wrong answers, anything you have difficulty with, that's golden material for you to learn from and improve upon. Because you don't want to just do exam after exam and kind of keep studying everything. You want to target weak areas and learn from them. And then maybe you find the problems that give you trouble, you can then know, okay, I want to review questions of this type or questions involving this concept, or maybe I thought I was good on games, but there's a certain game type that I don't know, that I'm not proficient enough in, and then you have a few weeks to focus on that. But you definitely don't want to run the risk of burnout in the final weeks. A lot of future lawyers are type A, gung-ho people who end up pushing themselves too hard and doing too much. And that leads to burnout, which will be counterproductive, and your scores can suffer. And just because you're fatigued, you're exhausted. If you think of training for a marathon, if you ever looked at a plan like that, you're actually not doing a whole lot of 20-plus mile runs in the final month. You might actually only ever do a couple of long runs of 20-plus miles before actually running the marathon. And in the final week, you're doing short runs, if anything. You already have the ability, you have the muscles, you have the training. You want to walk in refreshed and feeling good, which is why the day before, you really shouldn't do anything at all. If you want to do a tiny bit of review or reading an article or watching a video, that's okay, but I wouldn't do more than that the day before. And even 2 days before, you could do your final timed exam, but also the question then is, why are you doing that full-length timed exam 2 days before? What is your purpose? Is it to measure where you stand? Is it to get another great score under your belt and feel good about it? Is it because you feel like you'll lose everything if you don't do yet one more? Think about your reasons. If you've already gotten, let's say, a 170 and your goal is a 170, you don't need to take one more exam just to prove you can do it. If you've already gotten the score, you've proved that you're capable of doing it. And of course, maybe you won't do that every single time, but that's okay. That's why law schools only take the highest of your scores, not the average of them. They care about how you perform at your best. And so if you got a 170 previously, you get a 167 on test day, that's okay. That's still a great score, and you could always retake if you need to. Which brings me to the idea that if you're registered for June, it may also be worth registering for July, just to have the peace of mind of knowing that you have another opportunity available to you. This is not the last end-all, be-all. Same goes if you're taking in July. You could also register for September, just in case. Then, if you don't need it, you can always withdraw. But again, if you could potentially do even just a few points better by taking it again, it's worth doing that, because law schools, again, only take the highest. There's a big gap between July and September, but that's the only big gap remaining this year. June and July, only about a month or so. September, October, November, all just a month apart from each other. So there's really not that much additional pressure or work involved in staying fresh on the LSAT for another 4 weeks or so. So I think it's also just to reduce the anxiety related to that, I think is really useful. And then if you're not where you want to be in the final week or so, let's say you took 3 exams in the final 3 weeks beforehand, and your average of those was consistently 4 to 5 points below where you want to be, chances are you're not going to score 4 to 5 points higher than your PT average on test day. You might do 3 points higher, 2 points higher, but 4 to 5 is a lot. And so I'd say if you're not close to where you want to be, maybe withdraw or maybe postpone. You can postpone up to 3 weeks before, I think, and then that gives you most of your money back. If you withdraw, you don't get any money back, but I know $200, it sucks to give them that money, but it's just a drop in the bucket compared to law school. And so if you can sacrifice that and take it later, you're much better off doing that. You don't want to have another take on your record if you don't really need it. I don't ever recommend taking it just to see how you'll do, even if you know it won't be what you want it to be, because there is an upper limit at some point on how many exams you want to have taken on your record. I think maybe 5 or 6 is the max you want to have. That could be 3 takes and 3 cancellations at most. Ideally, maybe 1 or 2 takes and 1 cancellation is really the ideal. So I think 3 or 4 is the max you want to have. 5 or 6 is the max I would ever want you to take overall, period. If you withdraw, law schools will never know you were registered. If you postpone, they'll never know you were registered. But if you take it and cancel, they will know. And the cancellation to them is a big question mark. They don't want you taking it just to see how you'll do in a proper setting. You can get that on your own. All the big prep companies offer free exam administrations for marketing purposes. So a few weeks out, you could go to any of them, Kaplan, Princeton Review. They typically offer them at least once a month, if not more frequently. And they're doing it obviously as marketing, but you can go there and ignore the sales pitch and get the free proctoring. And you can bring your own exam if you don't want to do the one that they're giving you. I think also, especially with the digital LSAT coming, they still want to offer these free proctored exams. They'll probably offer them in the digital LSAT format on a tablet. And so if you're saying, I want to see what digital is like, still take it with them to get the experience, or go online. LSAT has the online 3 exams currently in the digital format. And so you can get a tablet or borrow a tablet if you really want to get a sense of what specifically it's like. If you want to properly simulate test day conditions with a tablet, I suggest, of course, doing as many exams as you can on the tablet. They're using a Microsoft Surface Go, but any old tablet is fine if you already have a Samsung or an iPad. Those are good. Amazon Fire tablets are like $150, and you can return it after the test if it doesn't work for you, if you don't like it in the long term. That's an option too. So I think there's really no reason not to get a tablet, but you don't really absolutely need one. The content of the exam has not changed at all. It's only the format and some of the annotation tools that have changed. What else? Let's see. I got a few general questions about test day specific things, what to bring, what not to bring, what you can do, what you can't do. So I'll run through those. Bringing your phone, big question, of course. What if you absolutely have to bring your phone to the test center? Can you turn it off and put it in your wallet and kind of hide it away somewhere? Don't do it. Just don't. I mean, I know that you want to. We can't live without our phones. You want to take an Uber to the test or at least use GPS or whatever. Unfortunately, it's not worth the risk. If it falls out of your pocket, somebody sees it, they could kick you out for that reason. I heard one story of an exam at Columbia, actually, where the proctors asked everyone to bring their cell phones up to the front of the group, implying they would hold it for all the test takers. Then they just kicked out all those people. They kicked everybody out. It was like the ultimate fake out. Really terrible, nasty thing for them to do, but it's within their right as the proctors. Those are the rules. No bringing your phone, period. I do think in the long term, they will have a solution where you can lock up your phone in a locker or something, and they can hold it for you that way. But for some reason still, they don't want to deal with the logistics of that, and they have a lot of concerns over piracy and test security. There was a case back in February '97 where somebody was using a pager to send answers from California to test takers in Hawaii, and ever since then they've been really, really paranoid about test security with that. The same reason you can't bring a mechanical pencil like this is because you could hide something inside it somehow. That's their reasoning. So they're really overly strict with this, but don't bring your phone. We all survived without cell phones before they ever came on the market. We'll all be okay getting to and from, look things up, make little notes about how to get there on the subway or something if you need to, and just trust that will be enough for you. What else? Can you bring medicine and a snack? I would say email LSAC. You can email them at lsacinfo@lsac.org. Email them now, because they do take a few days to get back to you. And obviously in the final days before the exam, they're getting a lot of emails and they may not respond immediately. They're not going to email you back if you email them at Saturday at like 7 a.m., they're not going to get back to you within an hour or two most likely. So think of all your questions, think of everything you need and ask them now. Technically, you are allowed to snack. You can bring a gallon-sized Ziploc bag with any permitted items. So that would be your admission ticket, number 2 pencils, sharpened, regular, not mechanical. You can bring an eraser. You can bring a 20-ounce water bottle, I think. You could, maybe smaller than that. You could bring some sort of water bottle. You can bring a banana, granola bar. They say hygiene products as well, but obviously that's kind of open-ended. I'm not sure for medicine specifically. I think that you should email them and ask. And of course, bring a doctor's note. Bring a printout of your emailed response with you in case you have a dispute with the proctors, because they are just random people who got hired to do this job for the weekend. It's like some side money. They're not LSAC employees. They don't really know all the details of LSAC, and they're not always well versed in the rules. They might be their first time doing it. So issues do happen sometimes. The best preparation is to email LSAC beforehand to get everything addressed, and then of course, don't violate any of the rules.
Brought eye drops in March.
And they were okay with that? Yeah, I would think they'd be okay with it. I've emailed them about things like gum, for example, and they said it's based on whether it disturbs others or not. So enforcement of things could vary sometimes. Let's see what else. In terms of relaxing the day before, I talked about not studying, but what should you do instead? Basically, anything you want that's fun for you and not taxing. So if it's watching Netflix, if it's playing video games, if it's going for a walk in the park, if it's hanging out with friends, that's all, watching movies, all of that is great. I would say so any leisure activity, seeing friends, it's all good. A few days before, same thing. I don't think you should try to cram all your studying into the final week. Yeah, at that point, either you really know it or you don't. It's about just staying fresh and not burning out. So going bowling, playing pool, going to the park, it's all good. Questions?
Not a question. I burned myself out.
Yeah, it really does happen. Yeah, it really does happen.
Yeah, it's totally unexpected. But,
what do you think is the biggest thing that led to your burnout?
I just had like a ton of stress, and I was putting all my eggs in like the basket of the March test.
Yeah.
Even though I was signed up for the June test already, I still it's like this is the one I've been studying for so many months and all this time. And I was like still reviewing things. I didn't do anything the day before I relaxed, but I was still reviewing a ton and like really intense up until the day before. And then I scored 7 points lower than my prep test average.
It really can happen. Yeah, it's crazy. Like you could know the content inside out, but stress can definitely get the better of you. Burnout can definitely have an impact on you. And so don't place all your eggs in the basket of just one particular test date, especially now. It's gone from being offered 4 times a year to like 10 times a year. It's nearly every month going forward. And so you've got this remainder of this year, June, July, September, October, November. The next year was January, March, and April, I believe, all of those. So there's a ton of opportunities. It's not limited to any one date. And applying early matters much less than it used to. So you can always retake. Even November is not late. January is like the latest I'd recommend ideally, but January even is okay. So I think don't focus overall on any one particular test date in particular. Try to take this exam that you're taking going forward soon. It's just yet another timed exam. So if you've done 10, like I recommended, 10 full-length 5-section exams, then this one you take on test is just number 11. And treat it that way and ignore everybody else in the room. Don't pay any attention to them. Don't talk with them beforehand because you don't know what they're going to say that could stress you out. They're probably going to be stressing about what they don't know or how they didn't study enough or whatever. Honestly, I think you should steer clear of others because they're a wild card. You never know what they're going to be, what they're going to say. And overall, just you could look at them from a distance and say, "I know this better than you. I've studied a ton." Not like you're looking down on them necessarily, but that like, just walk in, feeling like you own it. Thinking of all the stuff that you've done up to this point, how far you've come from knowing 0 initially to knowing every question type, every section type overall, and just walking with that dominating mentality that you want to beat this test, that you're better than this test, whatever will psych you up. So if it's music, I think music or motivational videos can really help. And just kind of walking with that mentality that you've done this before, you've done it at least 10 times ideally, and so this is just yet another iteration of the same exact thing. And you also know that this exam, or at least usually, half the exams are released, and so June will become test 87. July won't be disclosed initially, but ultimately it will be at some later date. It'll be test 95 or something like that. So some future test taker will be taking your exam as part of their practice with as little stress on it as you had for your practice tests. The content is the same. People will often walk out feeling like it was different, but ultimately, of course, it's never really different from what you did before. It just felt different in the moment. And so one thing you can do as you walk out of the test is later that day, write down your entire recollection of everything that happened, just so that a few days later you can think back on it fresh, because you will lose it, and that the first 3 to 5 hours after the test are kind of like a golden window where you still actually can remember a decent chunk of what happened. And then, of course, you can figure out later what was the experimental section. People will go online on forums and talk about what it was to figure it out. Obviously, if someone had 2 games or two reading comps or 3 logical reasonings, you know at least which type it was. But if you can remember a game topic or a passage topic or an LR question topic, you can, through online discussing with others, figure out which one was your experimental, and that can help at least reduce the stress. Because obviously, it doesn't really matter, it's done, but if you're thinking about canceling, which I don't really recommend ever doing, unless something went astronomically wrong, at least if you can figure out what was the experimental, then you can have a better sense of how it went well or not so well. And you won't stress as much for the following 3 weeks or so until you get your score back.
Are you not supposed to discuss tests?
That's a great question. Yeah, I was thinking about that. So you're not supposed to discuss the actual exam content, especially if it's not disclosed because of security concerns. But LSAT is okay with people discussing as far as IDing what the experimental section was. That they've been okay with on all the forums. It's okay, I talked about it, and they have not had any issue with that. It's about posting question text or saying, was A the answer to number 21? They don't want that, but overall just, this topic was mirrors, this topic was dental cavities, this topic was ambassadors, whatever it was. Those are all okay to speak about in a couple of words, but not beyond that. And just as you are thinking now about what was the experimental after the event, I'm also thinking about if you have 2 games back to back or 2 reading comps back to back, what would that be like for you? If you would hate the idea of that, then you should practice that now so that on test day, if it occurs, it won't be the first time you've experienced that. And so in general, to kind of reduce the stress, walk through now, what are all the various potential scenarios that you might not like that much, and how would you handle them if they came up? So what will you do if you walk in and you open the booklet and you are faced with an ordering game or a grouping game? Or what if you finish games and you're like, man, that was rough, and then section 2 is more games again. And you're like, did I just waste my time on the experimental section or not? All of those scenarios could happen. You could get 2 games, 2 reading comps, or 3 LRs all back to back. It's entirely possible. It's happened. I've experienced it myself. It's rough, but it is what it is. And so if that's your worst case scenario, whatever it is, practice that now. You could even have 3 LRs back to back, and that's a lot. I know it's a lot. Yesterday, of course, we did 15 questions over the course of an hour plus back to back in a row, and that was hard. That was grueling, especially when it was nice outside. But on test day, it could be the exact same thing. 3 sections back to back. That's 35 times 3. That's an hour 45 of nothing but LR in a row. If that's your worst nightmare, then do it now. And also imagine what it would be like and how you would handle it. Would you be stressed? Would you be okay? Would you feel comfortable bringing all your previous knowledge to bear about question types or section types or diagramming strategies? Would you be okay with implementing that? And you could actually walk through what would it look like. On the day before or day of, you could actually just pick up a prep test and just go through the motions without actually doing any work, but draw 7 spots on the diagram, draw 2 groups, draw V1, V2, or whatever else it might be. ID conclusions and evidence, nothing more than that really. A general warm-up is okay. Maybe doing 1 game, 1 passage, 4 LR questions, things you've done before and and you know the answers to, not to stress yourself out, not to really work through the content, so much as just to kind of go through the motions, so that the first questions you're doing on the exam day are not actual LSAT problems and you've at least gone through the flow of an entire exam, or at least a few questions. So I think to break that down further, final week, if you're not doing a timed exam 2 days before, at least go through and flip through all the pages and kind of have that flow of crossing off, circling, diagramming, note-taking, whatever it is. Go through that flow, and then day of, morning of, make a photocopy or print out a game or a passage or LRs, and just do them before you walk in. So do them if you're in the city, you're maybe at a Starbucks around the corner, or if you're driving in the car sitting outside the test center, they won't let you bring it in, of course, but at least you can do it right before you walk in. And then, of course, remember that you're going to be there for a while. You're going to be there for probably at least 4 hours. You've got 30 minutes to buckle in your name and address. You've got the 5 sections of the LSAT content, plus the break. And maybe it's actually a little bit less than 4 now because the writing sample is no longer at the test center, it's at home. So it won't be quite as long as it used to be. There'll be probably at least 3.5 hours though, and things do sometimes go wrong. Proctors aren't always knowledgeable about what they're doing, so don't expect that it'll happen, but be ready for it to happen where they can't find the booklets or they can't find the pencils or somebody shows up late, whatever it may be. They can't find the key to where the exams are locked up. Just be ready for any of those things to potentially happen. And there are cases where like fire alarm goes off, or there's a marching band outside, or there's construction. Those things can happen. They're not expected, and of course they're not ideal, but what will you do if a fire alarm goes off? How will you recover from that? Maybe it's just knowing, okay, well, I'm registered for July, but September is okay with me. Because you can think that at that very moment when it happens. Or you can think, I've been ready for this, I've practiced with distractions, and I'll keep my cool and know that they're going to pause the clock most likely, but we'll be able to pick back up where we left off.
That first part is like the worst, filling out your name. And
I know. I'm like, why are they still having us do this, right?
Yeah, it's like I psych myself up. I'm ready to just like nail this thing. But then it's like you have to sit there and bubble in your name.
I know.
And you're like, what the fuck is this? Yeah.
Exactly. At least the warm-up questions can actually be, at least if you're raring to go, use it on the warm-up. So like you're at least in the flow of that. And then obviously once you're sitting at the desk, you want to start. Right. But it is what it is. I think the digital, of course, will be a little bit different with that. Let's see, I had some questions here on pacing I wanted to cover. So within time setting, individual sections or full-length exams, the question was, how do we deal with time and pressure? How long should we spend on a question before telling yourself to come back at the end? So this relates to pacing strategy and getting bogged down. I think of this most often with LR, logical reasoning, because usually there will be 3 to 5 questions that I just don't want to deal with in the moment. These are tough questions. I don't like the topic. I don't like the length of it. Usually it's the wording. It's like too complex or something, especially if it's science or philosophy, those art ones. I'll usually just flag them and come back later. So if I'm especially if it's like 15 through 25, like the toughest in the section, I'll just flag it the second I see I don't like it and I'm not making headway in my understanding. I'll just flag it, come back at the end. I'm working at a pretty fast pace where I'm able to do the first 10 in logical reasoning in 10 to 12 minutes, build up a time bank I can apply to the tougher questions later. So when I flag them, I'll just skip them and come back at the end. I'll have a time bank of at least 3 to 5 minutes where I can go and handle those tough questions that I didn't want to deal with in the moment. So as for how long to spend before flagging to come back, maybe a minute or so. It's really when you feel like you're not making headway. So if your understanding is not improving, along with time invested in the question, that suggests this is not your moment to tackle that question. I know that coming back to it, you will have a fresh perspective. You'll break out of that previous tunnel vision, and that could help a lot. Maybe you'll unlock what a keyword meant, or what was the conclusion, what was the counter premise, or whatever it may be, and you'll be able to better handle it on a second look. Also remember that you don't need to answer every question to get a top score, and of course, every question is worth the same. So it's not a good use of your time to spend 5 minutes on one question at the expense of potentially easier questions for you later. Logical reasoning is in a general order of difficulty, but not a perfect order of difficulty. So question 19 could be harder than number 22. And also maybe you have a personal degree of comfort with some questions over others. So maybe you just don't like the question type in number 19, but 22 is easier for you specifically, and so it's better for you to spend your time on 22 and deal with 19 later. Other questions here on section pacing. When you have that time bank, let's say you have 3 to 5 minutes left at the end of the section, what should you do with that time? Should you put your head down and rest? Should you come back to those tough flag questions? Should you just look over everything else you did to make sure that and confirm that it was right? I think first off, come back to the ones that you flagged and try to give them a second look, hammer away at them further, Maybe they'll take you another 2 minutes to turn one from wrong to right or from a guess to right, but you just gained a point, and that's awesome. On the other hand, if you really had no clue on those, and you find it works well for you to not attempt every single question, then put your head down and rest, and then gear up for the next section. I think if you do adopt the strategy of not attempting every single question, you are setting a ceiling on your potential. Because keep in mind that, let's say you want to get a 170. A 170 means on average typically getting about 10 questions wrong. And the breakdown of those 10 questions is as follows. So 170, again, is about minus 10. On average, obviously raw scores will vary from exam to exam, but that's usually on average what it's like. That breaks down to minus 3 on LR, minus 3 on the other LR, minus 1 on RC, and then minus 1 or 0, minus 3 on RC, and then minus 1 or 0 on logic games. So obviously what would be for the minus 10, that's the usual breakdown. But what that means is that you can only get 3 wrong on each LR. So, and chances are let's say if you're even doing like 20, 21 questions, you probably got 3 of those wrong out of 20, 21 on average. It's a tough exam. And so you can't afford to just leave the other ones blank or, of course, guess something on them, because you'll probably get, your odds on the ones you guess on are only 1 in 5. So I do think if you want this, you really have to attempt every single question on the exam no matter what. So I wouldn't leave anything blank with the hopes of just benefiting more from the rest on that section, on that exam overall. But if you've completed everything and you feel reasonably good about everything you completed, then you putting your head down and resting is fine. And personally, I'll give myself a minute or two if I can afford it, if I have the time. I'll give myself a minute or two of just resting before the next session. And obviously on the writing sample, when it was administered at the test center, I would definitely take the final 10 minutes and do nothing but rest, because it's not scored, of course. Let's see, so other things I should say. Exams, of course, that are published are only 4 sections, not 5. You should definitely do 5 sections, not only the 4. So you can take exams 83, 84, 85, 86. And then splice in a section from 82 to each one of those. So 82 section 1, 82 section 2, 82 section 3, 82 section 4. Then later, add up 82 to see what it might have been had you done it as a full-length timed exam. So you are giving full effort on all of your experimental sections and working through recent material at the same time. But always, always do this. And of course, if you can photocopy or print out, then you can more easily kind of splice it in to your exam and maybe even hide from yourself which one was the 82 section versus the 83 or 84 section. But definitely do this. I actually think that you should not do that many 4-section exams. Maybe do 1 to kind of get used to the flow, and you could do like 2 and then a break and then 2 more. But then on test day, you're going to do 3, break, 2. And that's 2 back-to-back, no break, then 3 back-to-back, no break, then your break, then 2 more. So it's pretty grueling. It's not easy. And actually on the digital version of the LSAT, there's going to be really no time in between. It's going to start immediately. When the 35 minutes hits on digital for 1 section, they immediately kick you forward to the next section, not like on the paper where you have probably like a minute where they say close your booklets and then open your booklets. Like they don't have that on the digital, but definitely 3 break 2, doing at least 10 of those is really, really important. That way the 1 out of 10 is yet just another exam. Let's see, for the final day or 2 beforehand, you want to get everything together. So your gallon-sized Ziploc with the admission ticket, your government-issued ID that is not expired. So not expired, not a university ID, government ID, passport, driver's license, non-driver state ID, whatever it is. You definitely want to have that ready to go. Double check it now to make sure it's not expiring soon. Make sure the name is correct, so no misspellings on either your admission ticket or your ID. If you are married and change your name, anything like that, you want to have that right. Any misspellings, they have been ridiculously strict on misspellings of names. And when it's obviously you, they still don't let people in sometimes. So be ready for that. Just get it all squared away now. Sometimes they change your testing center between the time that they assign it to you and test day itself. So if you registered like 2 months ago and you thought you were going to be taking it at one place, look at it again, like at least the day of or the day before to make sure it has not changed. So don't print it out now. Print it out like in the final week to make sure that they didn't change where you're going to be. And then of course, if you show up at the wrong place, that's not good. Let's see what else. Yeah, so get the government IDs and the Ziploc squared away early, not the day of. Do that at least a day or two beforehand, so that if you need something else, like, oh wait, like you don't have a pencil sharpener or you don't have enough number 2 pencils, like get all of those ready now and don't even touch that beforehand. Also think about what food you're going to eat the morning of, the night before, the day of for the snack. And don't try anything new, so don't suddenly eat some new food or take some new pill. Everything that you do on test day and the day before, you should have done previously as well. So there's no surprise in terms of your digestion or getting gassy or having a diuretic effect, whatever it may be. So don't start drinking coffee if you haven't been. Don't stop coffee if you do. Let's see what else. Caffeine's a diuretic, has a big impact there. Food can obviously impact people in different ways. Clothing also is important, so test centers can be surprisingly hot or surprisingly cold. So bring layers, just so that you're ready for anything, but no hoodies. Hoodies are not allowed, so don't bring a hoodie. For the regular paper LSAT, of course, analog watch, not a digital watch. They have some rules regarding chronograph watches, which is like a special kind of watch. So make sure that your watch that you've been using now is accepted at the LSAT that you'll be taking officially, and practice with that watch now, so that you're ready for whatever it may be on test day. And if you have questions on your watch, just email them to ask to confirm the details on that, and of course bring the printout of their email response. For the paper LSAT, don't wait till the end to bubble. It takes probably at least a good 1 or 2 minutes to bubble 25 questions. So bubble either at the 5-minute warning, which is a little bit risky still, because what if they forget to give you a 5-minute warning, or bubble question by question, or game by game, or passage by passage, or 2-page LR spread by 2-page LR spread.
What do you do?
What do? I do question by question. I like question by question because it gives you like a mental reset in between each one, so I can kind of let go of the previous one and move on to the new one. That's what I personally like. Others like to do game by game or passage by passage. And for bubbling, you want to go like this, like in towards out. So starting in the middle and gradually making bigger and bigger circles. That's the fastest way to bubble. This is obviously a very small detail, but some people care about those things, and I guess every second counts, right? Let's see what else. That's pretty much it overall. I mean, in terms of mindset, I guess you want to be thinking about best and worst case scenarios, aside from, of course, the option to retake. So it can be useful as a kind of exercise to walk through what is your best case and worst case scenario 3 to 5 years from now if you never get the score you want, or this particular exam doesn't go well. I mean, first off, if this particular exam doesn't go well, you can always retake, but what if you just can never get the score that you want? What could happen then? So could you go to a lower ranked law school than you might have otherwise wanted to, or could you get less scholarship money, or could you have a whole different career path, whatever it may be? I talked with somebody once who thought that if she didn't do well on the LSAT, she'd have to go to undergrad all over again to get a bachelor's in psychology to become a social worker. And I told her, you can major in anything and become a social worker. Like, your previous major is still good for you. You won't have to redo undergrad because of this. And so she had all this built-up anxiety that was based on a false premise altogether. And so I think really just walking through, even doing the research on what the consequences are, may be useful for you. So definitely think about, if you can only get, like, let's say you really want a 170, but what if you only get a 160? What schools could you go to with a 160 combined with your GPA? Could that be good enough for you to achieve your long-term career goals? Really think about it, write it out, talk it out, do the research. Things may not be as bad as you thought they were. And of course, on the plus side, the benefits of a top score could be motivating too. So look at both ends of it, but really walk through the specific potential outcomes in each possible scenario and see what they actually might look like. Because if you iron them out and make them more real for yourself, you can reduce some of the stress associated with the big question mark of, like, my life is over and I'm an idiot mentality that people often get. Are there questions on any of this?
What if your testing center has a habit of burning down?
Of burning down?
Yeah, because I'm taking it at pace in Scotland Fire 2 times.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. I mean, well, safety first, like exit the building along with everyone else and don't smoke cigarettes outside the building or whatever might cause those sorts of fires.
Yeah, like the insides, like the cafeteria in the basement and the trains will cause the school to go on fire.
That's crazy.
It's happened at least 5 times I was there in 3 years.
Oh my God. Well, we'll just pray it doesn't happen for sure, but I guess in the future, maybe avoid base if you can next time around. But overall, I mean, the odds, of course, of it happening on any one day are fairly low. But yeah, I'd say just bring fire, protective clothing. But be ready for the fire alarm to go off, maybe, for sure. The last thing I'll say is the time of day. A lot of tests are in the morning, but June and July, I believe, are both in the afternoon. The Monday exams that are going forward, the Monday exams are at 12:30, 1 o'clock. The Saturday exams are at 8:30, 9 a.m. So if most of you I think, are taking June and July, so if you are, then that's nice. At least you're not waking up first thing in the morning, but have kind of your morning routine and flow down. And don't save everything for the morning of just because you'll have a few hours in the morning to get ready. Still get everything ready the night before in terms of your Ziploc bag, clothing you'll bring, etc., so that you're not stressing the morning of. Then if you're taking it in the fall and getting one of the morning times, make sure you get on an early schedule. So wake up at ideally 6 or 6:30 a.m. so that you're really fresh and wide awake by 8:30, 9 o'clock. Because it does take you a few hours to wake up in the morning, but I do love that they're adding more afternoon exams. I think it's better, especially for like college students and recent grads who are on a later schedule. But having routines down, and of course, know where the test center is, know how to get there. Maybe go there once it's like a dry run to see the commute to get there, what it's like, the subway or driving. And then I guess the last thing I'll say on that is maybe potentially, if you can, take a test at your test center. Obviously, that's tough depending on security of various centers and rooms. Some are high schools, some are colleges, some are law schools. But you may be able to get them depending. I have had people have success on that, or at least get a look at what it looks like in the room that you will likely be taking it at, so you can have at least a picture in your head to remove some of the ambiguity around it. Any questions on anything I covered about test day prep?
Do they tell you like what classroom it is or what building it is?
Unfortunately not. They may tell you on your admission ticket what building it is, but they usually don't tell you specifically what room it is, as far as I know, but it can vary from center to center. Just get there early because sometimes the signage is not that good about where specifically on the campus, it's not a college, where specifically it may be. They might have like one 8.5, 11 piece of paper like this, like in faded pen, like showing you where it is, which is really not enough, of course. So get there early so you can find it and not be stressed out right before you walk in. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.